Hi everyone, it's time to have a look at how badly Jordan manages to mangle evolution.
We began to see that maybe religion as an answer was not in our best interest, and so the movement happened. We turned to science instead to answer our questions about the universe.
Correct. We discarded the things that can't be tested or that can be tested and shown to be false. We stopped making shit up and started actually checking to see how things really work. That's a good thing.
The only problem with this was that we grouped in many things with superstition that we probably shouldn't have. Things like consciousness, intuition, human connection, paranormal phenomenon. All of it went right out of the door with superstition, when in fact we've proven these things today to be real. The field of noetics and the works of biologist Rupert Sheldrake and his colleagues have more than proven mass consciousness exists and is definitely not a part of the brain.
These are perfect examples of pseudoscientists. Sheldrake's experiments have been criticized for not taking proper steps to eliminate things like confirmation bias, and his claims are often unfalsifiable. That means they're unscientific. The proper response to criticism like this in science is to redesign your experiments and modify your claims so that they become scientific. Sheldrake doesn't do that, so he hasn't proven anything. Instead, what he does is accuse science of being dogmatic, which of course is utterly ridiculous. It's the exact opposite of science if it's dogmatic. According to Sheldrake, there are 10 dogmas in science. 1. Everything is essentially mechanical. 2. All matter is unconscious. 3. The total amount of energy and matter is always the same. 4. The laws of nature are fixed. 5. Nature is purposeless. 6. All biological inheritance is material. 7. Minds are inside heads and are nothing more than the activity of the brain. 8. Memory is stored in material traces in the brain. 9. Unexplained phenomena such as telepathy are illusory. 10. Mechanistic medicine is the only one that really works. As anyone with any understanding of science can see, most of these are simply conclusions based on evidence that are accepted tentatively for just that reason. The first, fourth, and fifth ones are the only ones that really need to be addressed. The fifth one, that nature has no purpose. Science doesn't actually make any such assumption and hasn't reached any such conclusion. All we can say is, we don't believe that nature does have a purpose. Sheldrake is confusing not accepting A with accepting not A. Not accepting a claim doesn't mean accepting a contradictory claim. As for the first and fourth dogmas, as he calls them, these are assumptions justified by the fact that without them, we can't make any kind of predictions, and with them, we can. Since scientists work by taking their available knowledge and making predictions based on it, and then testing those predictions, they simply must assume that nature behaves in a consistent and predictable manner. Now, since science works, clearly the assumption is justified. But what the hell does this have to do with evolution?
If you haven't seen lesson 10 already, you should probably watch that one first. This lesson builds on what we covered last time, the phi ratio in particular. Sacred geometry is the geometry of consciousness. All levels of consciousness in the universe are integrated by a single image in sacred geometry. It is the key to space, time, and dimension, as well as consciousness itself. If you were to continue this drawing outwards to infinity, each time it would go into sync, drop out of sync for a few circles and squares, but then eventually hit phi again closer than it did the last time. Right now, there are 3 primary levels of consciousness that we're going to be talking about. They are essentially who we were, who we are, and who we will be.
Where do I start? How do you justify that association? What makes you think that any conclusions drawn based on this will be valid? How do you expect it? What's the point?
So the reason that we're on this circle and square combination and not the 6 square relative to some other circle is because of this. If you take the square and rotate it 45 degrees, it actually creates a bridge. It connects us from 2 harmonic levels of being. We're moving from one state of being to the other.
Ugh. The pattern is always going to be the same. So how can it show where we currently are? This is just... Do people actually buy this? Please tell me no one actually finds this a compelling argument.
If we look at evolution in Earth's history, we always seem to make random jumps.
Wrong. We don't make jumps, and they're not random. There's necessarily a jump between two distinct species in a chart like this, but that's because we're not shown the intermediate steps. If we showed every step, that is, every single generation, the drawing would be pretty damn big. The closest thing to a jump would be the kind of rapid evolution that happens when a population is isolated under very different conditions than what it's adapted to already, forcing the population to adapt rapidly or die out. But even that isn't the kind of jump Jordan is referring to. For one, as we'll see, he thinks that the jump is going to cause individuals to change and not a population over the course of multiple generations. For another, he thinks the jump is scheduled or destined to occur or something like that. When? Are you ready for this one? December 21st, 2012. For reasons explained in Lesson 5. Or at least it's supposed to start happening then. I don't know. But anyway, that means that this has to do with astrology and not adaptation to a new environment. I think it's safe to say that Jordan's understanding of evolution is on par with that of your average Bible-thumping creationist. At best.
We are changing. Right now, as you're watching this, your DNA is mutating.
Possibly, but in that case, we're talking about mutations in individual cells, and usually they don't do anything. If they do something significant, the most likely thing is that the cell just dies. But let's get this straight. Mutations that occur in living organisms cannot turn that organism into a member of a different species. Nor can it give them superpowers or anything like that. It can't make them turn into supernatural beings, like ghosts or gods or whatever. It doesn't work that way.
In the last few months, modern medicine has finally accepted publicly that a child was born with 3 DNA strands rather than 2.
Okay, I really have no idea if that's true. I don't know enough about genetics to evaluate that claim, but what I can tell you is that you committed a logical fallacy. Let's say you're right. Let's say a kid was born with really funny DNA. Okay, how does that prove that my DNA is changing? How does it prove that anyone else's DNA is changing? It doesn't. It's a non sequitur.
Through sacred geometry, we begin to actually see where we could be going.
The geometry of consciousness would only have something to do with DNA if consciousness is the product of chemistry. Because DNA is a molecule. It's chemistry. But Jordan, you don't believe that. You believe that consciousness has to do with magic. Although you won't call it magic, but yeah, it is magic. It's something supernatural. Jordan, internal consistency. You can't have the cake and eat it too.
If we're just sitting around saying, goodness, I'm stoked for my DNA to activate, but in the meantime, I'm going to keep eating at McDonald's and keep watching TV for 4 hours a day and keep on being a jerk to people I don't like, then don't expect yourself to experience any profound shifts.
No, DNA changes in accordance with the laws of chemistry, just like any other chemical. How nice you are to people has nothing to do with it. Look, here's all I got from Lesson 11. You can turn a square 45 degrees. That proves that if you're nice to people, you'll ascend to a higher level of consciousness. Because your DNA is changing, and that proves that you'll ascend to a higher level of consciousness because consciousness has nothing to do with DNA. There's absolutely no internal consistency here. None. It is not possible to believe this. It is not possible to even ask for evidence because there is no consistent claim made. It's self-refuting. But okay, apparently our DNA is changing. Let's humor this guy. Jordan, how is it changing?
We are being changed physically from carbon-based beings to crystalline-based beings.
We're becoming crystalline-based. Crystalline means made of crystal. It's an adjective. Do you mean crystal-based? At least that would make grammatical sense. It would make no scientific sense because you can't replace carbon with crystal. Crystal is not an element. Crystal isn't even a compound. Crystal is a type of structure. The scientific ignorance here is just... Seriously, I don't know how much longer I can do this. It's when I watch a video like this that I feel like maybe I should go back to poning creationists instead, because at least they were smarter than Jordan. See ya.